It's amazing. It'd be funny. It'll be funny to see, at some point, everything becomes obsolete. And in the same way, I think we kind of came along. Wipeout was so successful, but we were a little more serious version of Wipeout. And I think we kind of made them obsolete. Eventually, something will come along and make us obsolete. And it'll probably be something where
the Running Man. That's
the
what's
Running
coming.
Man. So, I'm on Apprentice with Schwarzenegger, and we were airing in 2017, which is when Running Man was set. And I pointed out to him, I'm like, you realize you've become Damon Killian. And I'm Ben Richardson. I'm the Running Man. He was like, yeah, that's a good point, Iseman.
That's a pretty good accent.
What's so funny, not funny. I'm first of all, I'm a pathetic ass kisser when I get around people. Like, I'm a star. When I'm a fan of somebody, I'm a total fanboy. And so, like with Schwarzenegger from the beginning, I grew up. Predator, Commando, Terminator, Conan. Those were my Bible, and so I couldn't have been a bigger fan, and I just couldn't. I was constantly quoting his movies to him.
They're so quotable.
And
Conan,
what's funny is
best in life?
To cross your enemies and see the vision before you, and hear the lamentations of their women.
All right, you don't get the race.
And so. It got to the point to where I realized the only person who loves Schwarzenegger more than me is him. And so he loved it. And so I was just with him at the Arnold Expo, the Arnold Classic in Columbus, which... Sorry about that. No, am I back?
You're back.
I was just with him, and right before I go out on stage to introduce him, and he goes, Iseman, go make fun of me. And so he just has me out there doing him, and it was so much fun. He's a good sport about it.
Yeah, he seems like a really nice guy. I see him post on Reddit a lot, like in the weightlifting subreddits and stuff like that. I remember there was some guy who was really lanky. He was like 6'4", but like 130 pounds or something. And he was talking about getting the courage to go to the gym and falling over and spilling the weights, and how people pointed and laughed at him.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think I'm just going to give up. And then Schwarzenegger replies to his comment. He's like, "Oh no, you already showed so much courage. Like, you've already done the hard part that most people couldn't do. Get back in there and do it." And it was really cool.
He's a force of nature. It's amazing. I mean, he just turned 70. Obviously, he just had the heart surgery, but the guy keeps a schedule that, traveling around the globe, and the energy he has, and like how much the guy is just relentlessly positive, and a guy who refuses to take no for an answer, whether it's raising money for a charity or running for governor, whatever it is. And it's a guy, when you're around him, it's infectious. But what's great is it's not like this Tony Robbins rah-rah, which again, I think is great too. But he's also a ball buster. Like, he is, and that's kind of the way off camera. One of the things that I was really bummed that nobody got to see, because the show kind of, there's the business of the show that you have to do when you're introducing these things. But when the cameras are off, Schwarzenegger was with his buddies or with us, just relentless ball busting. And it was funny. He's such a funny guy. And what he loves is when someone finally gets up the nerve to give it to him. And so it's kind of one of those things, like when, you tease the girl you like, when he's going after you, you're like, oh, this is kind of his way of saying, you're good. Mm-hmm. You're good by me. You're a made man. And it was, but still, anytime I'm around him, like at some point my dad's birthday happened to fall on the day I was with Schwarzenegger. We're driving around, and I'm like, would you mind just saying happy birthday to my dad? And he just starts singing, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. And I'm like, Dad, that was short. He goes, that wasn't you? I go, that was Schwarzenegger. And my dad, I don't think he was impressed, but he could see how happy. My dad was not a big, your
dad's a big Trump supporter or something.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, when you've really made it, you'll have Trump.
Right. It'd be huge.
Just saying. Rating down.
I mean, it makes sense that he would be really cool, really into ball busting, because what are you supposed to say back to Arnold Schwarzenegger? It's like he's won Mr. Universe or Mr. World,
Olympia.
whatever it was.
Mr. Olympia, everything. He's won everything.
He's one of the biggest blockbuster actors of all time. He was a governor. Like, what can you really say other than like, you fucked your maid and made a really physically impressive kid out of it. Wow, he's going to be in the NFL. Like,
That's the one thing I've never said. That's the one I think that would be crossing the line. But even that, like his friends, that's what Tom Arnold. Tom Arnold has remained one of his really that's the other thing I think that speaks volumes about Schwarzenegger is when you're around him, you see the people he has in his life are friends he's had for decades. He's not one of these people who just goes through people and churns them out. Like he's got friends from when he was, a kid who he stays in touch with, who he surrounds himself with, and Tom Arnold. And he said Arnold at one point, Tom, he has a charity after school all-stars. So Tom Arnold was doing the auction and started making jokes about the maid in front of all these people. And only Tom Arnold could get away with it. But apparently it was one of those things where Schwarzenegger was, he's still friends with him. But I think that's one of those ones where you gotta make sure you're in before you go to that one. And I'm not there.
Yeah,
so.
I've
just love the stupids.
I've heard Tom Arnold talk about Arnold's parties and how he'll have all these exotic animals there. You'll be at like a house party, and all of a sudden there's like an alligator in the kitchen.
No.
At a Tom Arnold party?
No,
at a
at Schwarzenegger's house. I was just there, and so it's the craziest thing because this alligator's still, and so you could go up and they're like, you can get a photo kissing the alligator. I'm like, you're fucking with me. I'm like, no, go ahead. And so I go up and I'm like right there, and I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. And then Johnny Knoxville, who's at the party, comes up and just like pokes me, and I'm just just fucking the bitchiest noise that could have come out of anyone. But he does. Like you show up, you'll walk up. Sometimes there's a camel at his house, or a bison, or a bald eagle, and he'll have otters in his pool. And this is apparently tame because he was a tank driver in the Austrian army. And at one of his parties, he had his tank there, and like you could ride around in the tank. And I'm like, that's the one I want. But the tank now is like at the
from like Romania, whatever the fuck.
So from Austria, and you couldn't. Obviously there are very strict rules about this, and you couldn't get a tank, even though obviously this was just for his museum. But he was buddies with Bush, and so I think it was Rumsfeld or Cheney had to personally sign an order allowing an exemption for this tank to be imported into America. But that's we're sitting there. I'm sitting with Schwarzenegger at the table, and I'm next to his stunt double from True Lies, and he's telling me stories about how he nearly crashed the limousine in that scene with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Nearly crashed off the edge of the bridge with Jamie Lee Curtis and James Cameron in the limo. and next to me, Schwarzenegger's talking about meeting Mikhail Gorbachev. And you're just like this guy, it's just ridiculous to think of like all that he's done and the world impact he's had.
Schwarzenegger's fascinating.
It's great.
Anybody
it's
who
great.
excels in like one of the areas that he's made it
Right.
high in is like a success. Like if you become a governor, you're pretty successful. If you become Mr. Olympia, you're pretty successful. If you, star in a dozen blockbuster movies,
and his third role was
he'd have a
Conan.
tank.
His third role was like Conan the Barbarian.
Don't forget
And you're
Hercules in New York. That was the real breakout role.
Right. But it's amazing because he was like, I want to be a movie star. And they're like, no, you're going to be the bouncer or the bad guy. And he's like, I'm going to be the star. And he third or fourth role.
Saying no to this guy. Yeah. He's just enormous.
You know who they were considering as the Terminator before
O.J.
Arnold?
Simpson.
O.J. Simpson. And they turned it down because O.J. was, quote, too likable.
Right.
The 80s were a different time.
Isn't that amazing? Well, who was that? They said it was Howard Cosell interviewing O.J. Simpson and Bruce Jenner. There's a photo of him between those two. And it was like, and somebody put the meme was something like, I've seen the future and you guys aren't going to believe what happens.
Fucking OJ's a scary motherfucker. Although I say it all the time, I'm like, look, it's double murder, okay? He and a terrifying individual, but
boy, is he good in The Naked Gun.
Great in The Naked Gun. He kills it. Nordberg. That man can do slapstick.
It makes up for one of the murders in my eyes.
It really is amazing when you and again to look at the life he was leading to that point, and then to get away with the double murders, only to screw it up. Like, you're out. You did it. You got away with it, and then you commit another crime and end up in jail. It's these. Who would believe it if it were a movie? You just wouldn't.
If he
you wouldn't believe it.
If they told you, like, we're gonna do a new spin next season, you're gonna have a co-host. It's O.J. Simpson.
Well, so I love Anthony Cumia and Artie Lang, and when The Juice was released, Anthony was like, I would give him a show on this network tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I'm like, I'd probably listen to at least the first episode. I mean, you feel awful saying that, but at the same time, we have this morbid fascination.
Hey, I didn't know Nicole. All right, let's get real here. Like I don't know. I didn't know Ron Goldman. Hey, they were running around town with that man's money. They were fucking in his house. He shows up one night.
The damn near beheading that put it over the edge.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, like he said in that interview where he fake confessed, he just got a little carried away and blacked out. And when he came to, there was blood everywhere.
It's.
Tell me you haven't had a Saturday night like that.
He won the Heisman. Let it go. Let it go. You see that man run? Come on. He's got this bad knees now.
Well, that was when I moved out to LA. I moved out in September of '99, so it was still relatively fresh, and I drove a white Ford Bronco, which was fantastic to be driving around the LA highways in that. Really good to pick up a girl in a white Ford Bronco back then. Yeah.
I saw one on the internet. It was a white Bronco, and the license plate says "not OJ," which I thought was fucking hilarious.
That's good. That's good. I should have seen. I wasn't smart enough to come up with that. It was I'm fascinated by O.J. Simpson. I would love if he did an interview now, or if he had his own show. Man, if he had his own show, I would watch that shit relentlessly. Well, it's what they said, where we're getting to this point of what's next. You do get so dulled when you can see anything on the internet of the shock value. Just what you were saying, how the Donkey Kong, 7 years ago was, enough to get a show off the air. And now, probably like a 16-year-old would do it on a YouTube channel and get 1 million hits.
Yeah.
And
it would go viral
so you're right.
as the Donkey Kong challenge, right?
The Donkey Kong
it just
challenge.
be repeated again and again by everyone.
Or autism. Yeah.
For autism.
Some
Right.
tag at the end.
Yeah. They don't even get it.
This is actually a program to identify the autistic people drinking cum.
Right. We're very literal.